Good evening, people, and welcome to the Red Zone. With Liverpool continuing the sort of festive period and dishing out gifts, it may seem like we're a therapy centre as well as a football channel. But don't worry, we all sort of need each other right now and sort of navigate ourselves through the highs and lows of being a Liverpool channel. So sit back, relax, or even better, smash a like or engage with us through the comments as we explore what's wrong with Liverpool and even look at some potential solutions. With me to do all that is Jean, Shide, and of course our special guest tonight, Charlotte Coates from the Liverpool Echo, who I'm sure you've heard all about, and she continues to do her great work over there. Charlotte, I saw your tweet about getting your hands on probably the most wanted, the most hyped about drink on the planet right now. First of all, how does these prime drinks taste? And secondly, does it give you about 1,000,000% of energy as we need to order a few containers worth over to Anfield?
Well, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great if that was the case, but no. It's just a bog standard drink, really. I don't really understand the hype. I wasn't on the hunt for it, so as many people thought I were. But no, I just came across it in a random petrol station for £2. I thought, yeah, why not? And it was actually my mum who paid for it, so
win-win.
We have a saying in Punjabi, Charlotte, it tastes even better when it's free. So I'm sure you have the same feeling. Shide, how are we doing? You okay?
Very good. Good to see you guys again.
Likewise, all well and good. You're back in Lahore now, aren't we?
Yes, in Pakistan.
MashaAllah, that's good. And what time is it there now?
2 a.m.
2 a.m. This is what you call commitment. A lot more commitment than you, Chin. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I can't complain. Where's my intro? I was waiting for a proper intro from you today, but again, doesn't give me one.
I'm going to give you an intro when we win.
Okay, fair play. Yeah, other than the result yesterday, can't really complain. Everything else is okay. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Before we crack on, please, I don't know how many people are in here at the moment. Smash a like on the way in. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we have something of a bonus tonight as well. We've got the competition that we've sort of campaigned over at Twitter. And so if you haven't, then one of the requirements is you have to retweet. So if you haven't retweeted, please do now and then jump in back in the show. Or if you're watching on your iPad or your laptop, just quickly do it on your phone. But yeah, coming to you, Charlotte, first with the lineup. Liverpool, Wolves, all the talk was we're going to rest a few. It's only a cup competition. With our form in the league, it's not been great, as everybody knows. Were there any surprises, or in terms of the whole lineup? Actually, I should ask, the lineup, was it a big surprise to you?
It wasn't just because they're not exactly like playing. The fixture's not too hectic at the moment with the World Cup. All had just gone, so players are fresh and not exactly in the best of form either. So it's like play the players who are going to play every week to play them into form, sort of thing. Your likes of Fabinho, Henderson obviously come back from concussion, and you've seen Trent. He's probably the only one from like post World Cup who's actually in some form now. And it's just a shame everyone around him isn't. So I understand it, but it's also a risk. You've got no Van Dijk, so you're playing Konate and Matip. They're going to be your two first choice whilst Van Dijk's injured, and like that's fine. But if one of them gets injured, then you're starting to think, right, well, we're in trouble now. And I think it just went to show how important the game was to Klopp and to the team, that they did go so strong. And I feel like they just need to start winning games, start performing like they can, and put these bad performances behind them. But it obviously didn't go that way yesterday.
Shide, I was particularly, I think I tweeted yesterday as well, that I was okay with the lineup, especially with the World Cup break. Salah and these guys have been, off for a month or so. But do you think there's a bit of concern, especially when it comes to someone like Thiago, that we need to wrap him up in cotton wool, doing a three-man job in that midfield at the moment? So someone like him, we could have rested him?
I feel more than anything, it's a sign of the times as to how, I don't want to go into hyperbole, but how the mighty have fallen, in a sense where this should not be a priority for us, and it's become a priority for us because we've kind of given up on the league. We're a little bit under pressure with regard to coming up with something to show for the season. With definitely underdogs up against Real Madrid now, based on our form and based on, as we all know, the midfield matchup. So I think that I was slightly disappointed in the lineup. I thought that we're moving away from our project, which is to continue to blood in the youngsters through the cups. And there is a lot of valuable long-term progress that is done by letting the youngsters play in these positions. Now, I get the fact that there was no Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, there was no midweek game prior to or after it. So, and then there was an argument that that you made that they have to be in nick and they have to be in form. But at the same time, I felt that maybe based on how the team is performing, it wouldn't have been the worst thing to see more minutes for some of the youngsters as well. With regard to the possibility of picking up injuries in this weather, that always is there as well. But it seems to me that we can even just as well pick them up in training at this stage. So I personally felt that we could have gone a little with more youth in the lineup for sure.
Gene, I'm going to come to you if you want to touch on the lineup, feel free. But in terms of the game, it seemed a bit similar to the Leicester game, that we seemed to have started well, although sort of not electrifying, that we've become so used to seeing from Liverpool over the years. But we had some sort of control in the game. We created half chances, if you like, if I'm being kind, to Liverpool. We had that gap cut shot as well. But again, we did what we've been doing all season, and we just stretched out, as my introduction stated, that we stretched out this festive period and handed out another gift. And it came from our keeper, who, how many times has he saved our asses over the years? But it was a mistake and it was a gift.
Yeah, look, like you mentioned, the first 10, I thought we were okay. And nothing better than that, if I'm honest. I expected us to, especially with the way we played against Brentford, I thought, there'd be some sort of reaction. And yeah, to an extent, maybe for the first time we did okay. But like you mentioned, we like to give out gifts. It all come from a Thiago mistake. He rectified the mistake. Ball goes back to Ali. I saw Fabinho use his hand to say, give him the direction to go on to play the ball on the right hand side. And the one player that doesn't make, that's been let's say, the shining part of this Liverpool side made the mistake. So look, it was a mistake. And like you said, it was a gift that we give them, but it's Ali and he's been our player of the season by a country mile. So if he's made one mistake, fair play. But the biggest issue for me is, again, 1-0 down. Another game where we concede first and then the pressure builds. And that's my biggest issue is we're always conceding first and we still haven't managed to overcome that.
Yeah, just to touch on that, Charlotte, I know Saj is right, isn't he? That Liverpool are going to be affected upstairs now. It goes without saying. It's happened far too many times for them not to be affected mentally. And now you see it. Sometimes you see it. You go to the ground, the fans, as soon as the opposing team is on the break, creating their sort of first opportunity, you sense this nervousness around Anfield, amongst the fans, amongst the team. And as soon as the team sort of attacks us and tries to counter us, there is a sense of panic all over the ground.
Yeah, it's a strange one. It's hard to actually get your head around it, because over the past 3-4 years, it's not been Liverpool. It reminds me of Liverpool like back when I was young, back when I was a child and watching it, and it was like when it was always, we were fighting for the top 4 all the time and not quite contenders and defensively weak. And I remember, like you said about it getting in the heads now, where I think I've read today 14 of our 26 matches this season conceded first, and that it's poor, it's shocking, and it's not something that you think of with this Liverpool side. And remember, I think it was under Benitez where we were really bad at defending corners. And every time team got a corner, it was like, right, well, they're going to score now. And I feel like that's what it is now, but it's general play. That's the problem. It can come from a corner. It can come from a player giving a ball away, or just a team absolutely cutting through us like Leicester did. And that's it. You just don't know where it's coming from, but you just know it's coming.
Yeah, Shahid, one of the few players that came out of the game who didn't tarnish his reputation, I thought it was Trent. And he's the one who sort of was carrying the team at times and looked energetic. And he's the one player who I thought, is sort of enhancing his reputation, even though he's got a big one, as we know. But in terms of looking fresh, looking hungry, looked really sound in the tackle. He was really composed in one-on-one situations. And I think he's really benefited from having a break.
Yeah, Trent looks fresh. He's the main creative outlet right now, basically. Anytime anybody gets the ball, they just dump it to Trent and they expect him to create something. And invariably, he is doing quite a decent job with that. Personally, I think he would be even doing a much better job if we had more balance from both sides. But it doesn't seem like the delivery from the left is obviously as good, even though the statistics are that Robbo's gotten more assists, and he did look a little bit more fresh to me as well. But I do think that Trent is in good form, and it had been mentioned that it's unfortunate the team's not in good form. But just to touch on one or two of the other things that were discussed, I thought the crowd, from what I saw, was quite up for it because of the new signing and Gakpo being there. And the first 10 minutes, the crowd had the energy. But the team, like Saj said, they were okay. It wasn't like flying out of the traps when we beat United 4-0 at home. So there's still that intensity that the crowd was supposed to give and the players were supposed to feed off. It still wasn't at the level of what a Klopp team we expected. And then, as Charlotte said, teams are attacking us, but we used to pray for that. We used to pray for someone to get a corner against us, people to come out of the stop parking the bus so we could hit them on the brakes suddenly, so there'd be more space for us when we were attacking. But it seems to me that the whole universe is upside down right now when it comes to the way Liverpool are playing. They're just struggling so badly. I think, coming back to Trent, I think, the argument remains, what are they thinking about moving him into midfield? Is that why they're not signing anybody? I mean, we're all just clutching at straws right now.
I'll continue with this, but I just want to read this comment. I'll maybe put it to Charlotte as well. We've asked this question many times to our guests. I just want to know what you thought of it, think of it. Akshay Natwani, thanks for your question. Why have we switched back to a 4-3-3 when we don't have the midfielders for it? Because this is all the talk, isn't it, when it comes to Liverpool at the moment? It's midfield. And he continues to ask, we say we were getting results before the World Cup with a 4-4-2.
Yeah, well, I don't think that we should be in 4-3-3 anymore because of the midfield. The legs aren't there since Wijnaldum's gone. Henderson's getting older. Fabinho, I think his legs have gone, and it's being shown more because he's having to cover like each side now. So it's just so open in there, and I think it's just playing into opponents' hands. Like, play Brighton at the weekend, and they're going to be rubbing their hands together against this midfield. So I think a lot of it is top managers especially, are stubborn. They're just, Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp he played it 4-2-3-1, weren't it, at Dortmund? But that was his style there. He had the players for that. That's what he had. Come to Liverpool and straight away 4-3-3, that's what he wants to do. And fair play, he's won every single trophy with it. But you've just got to, I think that's where Pep Guardiola does pip him a bit, where he changes and it's like he sees it differently from game to game and player to player, and he's more ruthless as well, whereas just Klopp's just got this loyalty to systems, to players, and it's not doing Liverpool any good at the moment.
Gene, let's continue with the game then. We got the equaliser through an absolute brilliant ball through Trent, and he can finish, can't he? You're on mute again. You're on mute.
Sorry. So no, I was going to say it was a brilliant finish from Darwin Asim, and if there's one thing that he gives you is he's the one player that does give you what we lack: the intensity, the aggression, and that's what he is. He is chaos, and it was a fantastic ball by Trent and a marvelous left footed for finishing to the bottom corner. So you're thinking then, okay, we're 1-1. Now is it time for us to really have a go? And just watching the game, bar the 10 minutes, Wolves were in control every time they countered us. They got in, and it was really getting to me the amount of times that it's so easy that they can play 3 balls, and they bypass and they're onto our back 4. And the goal, yeah, look, I know it was a good goal and everything, but I say, truth be told, we didn't really create any clear-cut chances prior to that. So yes, it was a moment of brilliance, and that's what we're relying on right now. Is moments of brilliance from a Trent pass and a good finish. Other than that, we look lost. We look like a team that lacks creativity. And Charlotte mentioned in terms of our rigidness in the way we play in the 4-3-3. Look, it's not in Klopp's DNA to change this system, and she's right. How many times have we really, when we've had to change a system? Look at the time when we stuck by our midfielders at centre backs. It's only when shit hit the fan sort of thing that we realise that, okay, we need to play the best players in their position. And that's the thing. It is stubbornness, and the best managers in the world have that. But the great managers, there's always that time where they have to make a little tweak, which Charlotte mentioned. And I think Pep slightly has the better of Klopp in terms of being able to make that tweak. And you mentioned to me yesterday that the great managers, he gets a lot of flack for sometimes overthinking things, but he had the amount of times he's got it right outweighs the amount of times he's got it wrong.
Shahid, I thought their goal, Salah got the goal for us to put us 2-1 ahead, but I'm just looking at the comments. Most of the comments are all about the midfield, and I promise our viewers we will get to the midfield. We'll sort of dive into it, what the problems are, why Liverpool are conceding so many goals, why our teams sort of slicing through us so easily, and maybe sort of provide some potential solutions, maybe a change in system, a change in personnel even. So please bear with us as we get through, because I think our viewers want to get straight into the midfield conversation and get onto signing some players. But look, we try to sort of keep a bit of structure to the show. But I promise you we'll get there, and we'll announce I forgot to mention that we'll announce the winners of the competition at the end of the show as well. But Shahid, in terms of that goal, their equaliser, I thought it was a snapshot of the type of goal that we've been conceding this season, where teams play that out ball, they either clear it or sort of play the ball through the midfield, and all of a sudden the ball is with their attackers. Not Milner, yeah, it could if Milner's playing, but Fabinho and Thiago are nowhere in this instance, and the defense are just faced with the attackers running onto the last line of defense, and the overloads are either on the left or the right, and teams are just getting in far too easily. Do you think, if you watch that goal again, do you think Nunez with that first ball from Konate needs to be more sort of alert? No, or am I just sort of clutching at straws and nitpicking?
See, the thing is, what's happened now is the aura has not gone, but it's decreased significantly. So if you watch football for a long time, like I have, most of the teams that arrived at Old Trafford were already defeated long before they got on the pitch, and it was a self-perpetuating cycle, and they were not as bad. So you get the odd Coventry with Bellamy who would attack United, and somehow they'd get a good draw from time to time. You would get these good results because some managers were brave, but overall, it's also a mental game about which matches you're willing to write off and which matches you're going to attack, and where you're going to pick up your points, and you're stretched for resources. You're a weaker club. You financially, you aren't as powerful as the team that you're going to play, or you have to fight your relegation battle. So what's happened was that Liverpool, players would not hang on to the ball for that long when they were at Anfield because they knew they were going to get swarmed. Now, as I said, I have to agree with your viewers. I'm dying to get into the midfield as well. I have to tell you that. But in general, what was happening is that there was a little panic when the other team would have the ball because you got Mane and Salah and Bobby was coming back in the midfield and giving you an overload in midfield actually. And your right back and left back were pushing in the midfield, and all of a sudden, like in the last third and the middle third, it was all red everywhere. Now what's happened is there's just more gaps. There's not that intensity. The running data is there for everybody to see. We're getting outrun continuously. I'd love to see midfield versus midfield running data. But beyond that, on top of that, what you have is a lot of errors, a lot of bad passes, a lot of misplaced passes. In this match, I saw a lot of bad control as well. So either they're under pressure, or they weren't concentrating, or they were snapping at the ball, and the other teams look relaxed. Whereas it was opposite. We would be settled. We would be playing in the other half. Verge would be passing it around. And now what's happening is we keep giving the ball away. We did it against Leeds. We did it against Newcastle. Like 10, 12, 15 hours within like a 20-minute cycle, and all of a sudden the other team starts getting more and more confidence because you keep turning the ball over. The ball possession is key in professional football. So Konate, I mean, he just hoofed it up the pitch, straight back to them. And that's what happened against Brentford. When Harvey did the step over, straight back to them. Now you're saying, oh, Virgil was out of position, Konate was out of position. But when you turn the ball over, it's hard to get back in your set position so quickly. That's exactly what we were doing to other teams, you know. And plus we don't even know how to establish two banks of floor for anyways. You know, I think we should start training for that when we go to the Bernabeu, because I think that's, looking at the way Villarreal played Real Madrid, I really think we need to get some nasty in us if we want to progress. And I think that we really need to start mentally preparing our team for that. But the goal itself, when you give the ball to the other team, and even a slight ricochet or a slight deflection can create a chance in professional football. You just need to get that gap of 6 to 7 yards. So I think it was very, very poor the way Liverpool have been using the ball as well.
Charlotte, in terms of just touching on what Shahid mentioned and a few of the comments as well, Jurgen Klopp seems a bit flustered in press conferences these days, especially this season with our form this season. And one of these sort of things that he gets thrown at him, that he can't sort of manage the games as well as what you just said, Pep Guardiola, and maybe a few other managers. And I thought we had to give credit to the Wolves manager yesterday, where Liverpool were in their normal 4-3-3 formation, and their team, to their credit, how many teams have we seen come and park a bus at Anfield and try to sort of, nick a goal on the counter, just a bit of a similar fashion than what they tried to do when they sat in a really low block after the 75th minute. I think that's when they got their equaliser. But for the first part of the game, especially after their first goal, you have to give them credit. Their fullbacks were pretty high up. And what they were doing is, with Adama and on the Nori on the other side, they've sort of sat back in a really narrow 4-4-2 with their fullbacks fairly high up on the halfway. And they said to Liverpool, you've got your three really narrow in Salah, Gakpo and Nunez. So we're happy for you to have the ball with Trent and Robbo, who can't really take on a player, but we've got the legs in Nori and Adama to sort of help our fullbacks. And that's what they exactly did. And when they won the ball in defensive transitions for us, in attacking transitions for them, they looked really, really dangerous. And coming back to Klopp, why is he just not good enough in terms of managing games? Even we saw their third goal, which got called offside, is, when they got it, they were in a 5-4-1 position. It took them, for us, for a while to sort of change a system again or sort of tweak it. And we only engineered a bit of control into the game when they sort of sat back into a 5-4-1 and thought, okay, come at us And if we nick a goal, brilliant, but we're happy with a replay.
Yeah, I think even in the past with Liverpool and Klopp, you didn't tend to see like many changes in a system during a game. It was sometimes when you'd see 4 attackers on, like so when Jota were fit, Diaz were fit, Firmino, you'd see like them put on, and then you'd go like 4-2-4 sort of formation. But obviously don't have those options at the moment. So I think his bench yesterday, he doesn't trust a lot of players on the bench. I mean, there wasn't loads of talent on it, but you like Carvalho, he's not getting a kick. Ox it's minimal, Kate just getting 20 minutes, and it's like, well, he's not reacting to changes from the opposition, but it's how do you react if you've not got the players there to do it, sort of thing. It's like I feel like teams are now coming at Liverpool. They feel comfortable to come at Liverpool because I think the loss of Mane, Firmino being in and out of the team is a big problem, because that front three, like Klopp says, the midfield isn't the problem, it's the team sort of thing. And like the midfield is a problem, but the team itself is also a problem because the front three doesn't function as it did in a defensive phase, because you had Mane, who knew his job. He did it for 5 years. He'd cut out them passing lanes down the left, and then he'd be down that side covering with Robbo, and then you've got Firmino, who did pretty much the job of an extra midfield player. And I think now we're starting to see just what he brought to the side. And then Salah is the only one there who's still knows his job, but he's just not as involved as he used to be. But 2 of his mates aren't there, so it's just the whole team. I said it earlier in the season that it just feels like a big transition season, and people weren't getting on board with it. But it really does feel like that with Thiago being such an important part of the midfield. It is now like Liverpool have kind of gone from a team that just outran. They just were too much for teams. They were too powerful. They outran teams. They were too intense. They sprinted more. Whereas now it's like they want more control of a game, but they're just not able to do it.
Gina, I want to come to you. Charlotte mentioned that we want more control. I can understand where she's coming from. Carvalho in the team, Harvey Elliott in the team, who we've said in the many shows before, where they're not a Jurgen Klopp type of player. So you can say Pep Linders is influencing that side. We're becoming a more possession-based team to gain a bit of control. But if Waxy puts the slide up, I just want you to sort of talk to me about exploring different formations. How do we get a bit of more control in this? Because I feel that Liverpool have gone with Harvey Elliott after Wijnaldum, and the problem has now become is Salah. Salah, I know he was a bit wider during the early part of the season, but now he's more or less narrow, as we saw yesterday. And if Harvey Elliott is going to play that position off the ball, we have a less defender than sort of, let's say Manchester City in defensive transitions, where they play Walker in that Gomez role, whether it's a 3-4-3 we recently seen from Manchester City, or even a 4-3-3. So is it time for a change? That's my question. And these formations that we've just sort of drafted, they're not the answer, I'm saying, but it'll just help us. Maybe the manager and the team need to look at other options, because at the moment, whatever it is, we do look a bit predictable.
Whatever it is, Asim, we just spent bloody a couple of weeks in Dubai thinking that, we'll come back from there, we'll come back refreshed. We've come back and we've got worse. That's the simple truth. I honestly don't know what they've gone and done in Dubai. If it was a holiday or they'd enjoyed themselves, enjoyed the sun, but we've actually come back worse. And we've not had any more injuries since Dubai. If anything, I think a few of them have actually come back. So we should be playing a lot better, but we've got worse. In terms of actually, is it a time for the change? It's a difficult one. I personally want us to, maybe not the system, but I want us to change the way we play. Look, we've seen how easy it is for teams to break us down. And I mentioned on the show before, the midfield has given us 2 goals and 2 assists all season, right? Okay, if you've given us that, at least give us some solidify us defensively. Like you mentioned, we're probably the third most. The third side who had the most chances created against them. So that shows you there's a massive disconnect. I just want us to, first and foremost, I think clean sheets is the most important thing right now because we're just creating chances. So I want to try to solidify the defense and if that means us dropping further deep, do that. Because we've still got players like Salah who can hurt you, like what they did in 2021 where we were struggling and where we went back, we let the forward players let the forwards players play, and yes, we lost a lot of control, but at least we weren't creating chances. I was never a fan of the first formation you've put up. I'm not a great fan of Trent playing in the midfield. And I know a lot of people have come out and said this. And yes, it looks like what you've put up there. Gomez will give us a lot more defensively. And hopefully Trent will give us the armour that we need in terms of the midfield. But Trent, like you've mentioned previously, Trent isn't great turning back, And if you're playing with Fabinho and Thiago, Asim, you're really going to struggle. In terms of, Fabinho seems like he's lost his legs. Yeah, he'll give us an extra man defensively, but in the midfield, we're still short. The only way that I genuinely ask him, I look at our side and I see so many of our midfield, they're close to over the hill. This is because of just bad planning over the years in terms of the midfield. And I know people want to talk about this, but we have literally lost our legs. And in a Klopp team, the midfield is the most important part of, that's the engine. And that's where we've really, really struggled. And when you've had, you count the injuries, the loss of legs, psychologically, mentally, it just feels like everything's come all at once. And now we're really, really feeling the heat. And it doesn't help when players like Diaz, players like Jota, who will obviously push the opposition back no further 10 yards. They're not playing. We're playing the likes of Harvey Elliott and certain other players in their positions. Teams are now coming onto us. There's no fear because they think we're easy to play against. The midfield isn't that great. The defense is conceding chances. So teams are coming onto the field now thinking we're having a go. And the first game of the season against Fulham, that showed us everything.
I'm going to put the same question to Charlotte and Shide. I don't mind who goes first. But you're all telling me, we need to change the way we play. We're too easy, sort of to slice through in midfield. Teams are getting onto us, having more chances. You get the theme, don't you? But how do we play differently? And what on the left-hand side on your screen, if it's exactly the same as mine, that 3-4-3 isn't sort of the 3-4-3 diamond that's based on the Johan Cruyff 3-4-3 diamond that he built his legacy on, Charlotte. But it's a formation that allows us to sort of gives us the mobility in swapping positions. It gives us an option to play a 3-4-2-1 if you want to play 2 10s, Gakpo and Salah behind Nunez. It allows us even the flexibility for Robertson to drop back into a 4-3-3, either on the ball or off the ball, as we saw City drop into back as they were putting Rodri back into a centre-back position in their Premier League game against City. So it gives us flexibility, it gives us mobility. And Saj mentioned he doesn't want Trent to be running back towards his own goal. But with Gomez, I think Gomez, this is his position. I think he needs to be a backup to Trent because I think he gets out-muscled. And I thought he had a brilliant game against City in the league at Anfield. But this formation, doesn't it give us the sort of flexibility that a Klopp team needs? Because at the moment, like I said, we're too predictable.
Yeah, potentially. Just it's hard to imagine Klopp going with 3 at the back, but as with the way things are going at the moment, nothing's out of the question, I guess. With formations, something needs to change. I'd quite like to see a 4-2-3-1, and I thought we would see it, to be honest. And I think for small parts of the season, like during games, that we have seen it. But obviously, we need players back for that. I think signing Gakpo he could play in that 10 role. But then obviously you need a Diaz, you need a Jota for the left, Nunez up front, Salah. So I think that could be the plan. If you have Thiago, Fabinho just sat, and then if they're just sat in that 2, then they're not being dragged all over the place. And out of position basically and just don't have the legs to get back. I think there needs to be more. Like Liverpool just don't have a structure to how they play anymore. There's no. It's like they're still trying to do the same things that they were doing. Like obviously last year they were 2 games away from winning everything. So you look back and you think, what's changed in 6 months? But I think playing 63 games in a season has kind of taken it out of them, maybe physically, mentally as well. Not winning the league, not winning the Champions League will have, maybe if they'd have won in Paris, who knows what this season would have been like. But it's just clear that something needs to change now. And I think with the targets that are being looked at as well with the midfield, it's I can't see a change. I can't see a change from 4-3-3 because you're thinking, well, why would you target Bellingham? Why would you target Saicedo at Brighton? Like they're powerful runners and they are Klopp players. They're perfect for that midfield. But it's just what do you do now? Because if you don't do anything, then there's going to be no Champions League, and like watching us against Real Madrid isn't going to be very pretty. So something needs to change.
Shahid, thoughts?
I feel we have an identity crisis, massive one. Are we a selling club or are we a big club? Because I don't think City let Bernardo Silva go, despite the rumors that his girlfriend wanted to go back to Barcelona and what have you. And they are betting in Haaland and Alvarez at the same time. And I felt like actually Liverpool should have never let Mane go. Okay, but the thing is they didn't have the money. So they had to let Mane go. But what Mane should have betted in his replacement over the course of time. The same way we discussed last week, Harvey right now should be playing, I'd say, around 25 to 30% less of the minutes that he's playing. So we broke the team up, but we didn't break it all the way up. We should have just let Salah and Mane go and then really committed 100% to starting the entire cycle all over again and saying, okay, we're going to go back to a club that for the next 2 years is going to fight to just qualify for the Champions League. Even though we have the most revenue in the world almost, and even though we have the most fans in the United States right now, I don't know why we have to compromise again and again with regard to having maybe the best European pedigree of the last 4 years financially, the incomings. But for some reason, we were not able to punch our weight. Well, I mean, obviously the building of the stadium and building of the training ground, but nevertheless, you have basically you've got 2 transitions going on now. Your attack line is being changed over, and your midfield is being changed over. Your midfield's aging. You haven't invested in it over the last 3 or 4 years. And your attack line, you've got new players in there. Now, Luis Diaz got embedded in amazingly fast and well. Okay, we're very lucky. Same with Jota. But with regard to Gakpo, I mean, it was his first match. I saw some criticism of it. I couldn't even believe it. It's mind-boggling. Guy just got there. It's his first match. And I actually thought Wolves did play quite defensive between their little purple patch when they scored their 2 goals. They were defensive in the beginning of the match, and they were a little defensive at the end of the match as well. So there wasn't that much space for Gakpo to exploit. And that will be the case moving forward as well. But he has to get used to the interchange and the interplay and the one touch and the combinations that are required to unearth and unlock the pack defenses, which he will, because he has the talent and the nous and the finishing. So we have to give these players upfront time to understand the exact schematics of a Klopp press as well, which is not being done properly. On top of that, you got the midfield aging rapidly. And I don't think we should change this formation. I think we need to really analyze with regard to the personnel in midfield, and we need to change the personnel in midfield, actually. And again, a player like Thiago, with his injury record, with his style of play, it's a horses for courses type of situation in which you can play him 20 to 25 matches. He's making the most tackles, he's running the most, he's sliding the most, he's playing the most. I hasten to call him a luxury player because he's my favorite player, but to be honest with you, he is now has to be established as also a problem to be in the way that the distance covered and the way that the ball is bypassing him. Now, the only guy who's who's consistent from what we had previously is actually Fabinho, and who also had a dip in form prior to the World Cup. So I think we need runners in there, and we need to go back to what we were, and we need to continue to bed Simi and Ramsey and Gomez, and I think that the formula can still work, except for we have to factor in that we let Sadio go, and we maybe underestimated just how important his press was, helping our entire team push up the field. And on top of that, we've neglected our midfield for the last 4 or 8 or 6 windows, and we really need to now invest heavily. Now, if there's no Champions League football, then there's no Bellingham. Okay, it's logical. There's no reason for Rice to go to Chelsea and leave West Ham. Why would he? He's the captain of West Ham. The only reason he would go to Chelsea is to play in the Champions League. So the same thing for Bellingham. Why would Bellingham leave Borussia Dortmund, who are in the Champions League, and then come to Liverpool, who are going to be in the Europa League? Now, of course, Liverpool's the best club in the world, but you're not helping your cause by writing off this season in the way that you are, by not investing in your midfield when there are options available. In fact, there's a bumper crop of midfielders available. If you said go find right backs right now, you wouldn't find so many. You had Onoi, you had Amrabat, you have Caicedo, you had Nunez, okay, and you have Bellingham, or you will have Bellingham. So and you have the Argentinian Fernandez. So there are like 6 to 7 players available if you're willing to pay the money. We just need a couple of strong runners who can then balance the load out a little bit, so that we don't have to keep pushing Hendo on, pushing Thiago on, so they can come on for, there are 5 substitutions allowed. They can come on for 30 to 35 minutes and give us hard 35 minutes, including Harvey. We can control possession once we tire the other team out. Once we tire the other team out, these guys can come on in the 60th minute, and they can then, you'll see a complete different team.
Charlotte, David Lynch had some comments about Caicedo tonight, and he thinks Caicedo is not amongst Liverpool's top 3 midfield targets, because he goes, the key is that they need to bring in a homegrown player, as they will lose both Ox and Milner. So, and Jude is obviously a summer target, obviously, as Shide states, if we get Champions League. But he goes on to say in another tweet, he goes that the cost of such a deal would mean that any non-homegrown player coming in at the same time as him would have to come cheaper than the sums mentioned for Caicedo. So if we don't get Caicedo, where is the line between someone affordable and someone like Caicedo?
Oh yeah, that's the question, isn't it? I heard that there's two lists. So there's like a Champions League list of targets, and then obviously an alternative list, so Europa League, Conference League, whatever Liverpool will be in. And you worry what that second list is. I can't name players currently because I've tried not to think about that. But you want your Bellingham, like it's Liverpool, it's like you should be competing for your Bellinghams.
Yeah.
Caicedo now it's glaringly obvious what Liverpool need, and he's there, he's available. Is he on 3.5k a week at Brighton? And that's
yeah.
I mean, obviously it's still a great wage, but it's not exactly a footballer's wage. But he's there. You just feel like if the club just had, well, not so much the club, the owners, whoever's in charge of transfers, just a bit more ambition, go out and get him, do it, secure Champions League football, then sign Bellingham, and then you just feel like everything then will start to pick up. Like the Klopp can stick to his 4-3-3, and they're obviously holding out for Bellingham because, like last summer, wanted Tchouaméni, but that didn't happen. So we know that Klopp likes to hang on to his targets, and that's who he wants. And then like Van Dijk, and that paid off. That summer, I remember when they ended all interest in him, apparently, with that letter from tapping him up, and then absolutely furious. No centre-half was signed. But then in January, it got announced that signed Van Dijk, and everything since then has been perfect up until now, really. But you feel like it's the same thing with Bellingham, where they must have had some sort of like there must be an inkling at the club that they can get him, or that the funds are there to get him, or else surely they would have signed someone. So it's just, I don't know, it's a difficult one. It's hard to get your head around. It's hard to understand it.
Well, Gene, at the moment, I feel like we need to forget about Jude. You know, we can go for a walk. Trent, you can send Trent and agent Hendo to Germany in the summer. But at the moment, our Champions League status is in real danger. So park Jude up for a second. We need a midfielder. But Klopp, again, has come out, and I don't expect him to come out and sort of really write off his players in public. But he keeps getting pressed in press conferences, and he was asked about the midfield and how his team are so easy to play against. And he said it's not concerning in general about the sort of defending, but in moments. But don't you think every fan is crying out? These moments are mainly in midfield. 95% of these moments are in midfield. Now, obviously, we've seen in sort of defense, individual errors. Yesterday, Alisson. Well, these gaps are in the middle of the park, and if we don't really act now, we've got 23 days. I don't know. I don't even want to think about how messy the situation could be in the summer.
Before this the summer window closed, Klopp came out and said, I was wrong. You guys were right. We needed a midfielder. That just in itself shows you so much. Who did we get? We signed.
We went to go get Alpha.
We signed. Yeah, exactly. We signed a loanee. Fine, okay. Which is going to keep, as a stopgap. We lose so many midfielders. That same player's injured. He comes back. Now, it's now or never. It's do or die. Personally, if you ask me, we've got 3 weeks and we need to dip into this market, and we need to, whatever it takes, bring in at least one. And I'm sorry, but I'm not a fan of any stopgap. I need a player who's gonna come in and play in this side for the next 2 or 3 years. Sometimes you have to pay premium. You have to put the money on the table. That's just the way it works. You're the one of the biggest clubs in the world with the biggest revenue. I don't understand where this money's gone. You tried to do a deal for Nunez, which I will never understand. A deal in the summer, and okay, if he's good enough, he'll play next summer. The guy's been absolutely crap for 4 months, but we're gonna go and sign him. It's the most baffling deal I've ever heard. And then we've come to a point now where Caicedo, end of the day, you put the money on the table, he's your player. If we're not willing to put that money on the table, then we're not going to sign anyone, and that's just the way it goes. I've seen. Look, end of the day, I'm reserving judgment. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to give them till the 31st of January, to the end of this month. I want to see at least one midfielder come in, because the owners, whatever, they deserve a bit of chat time. We've given them time. It's time now that this side needs help, and that midfield really needs help.
Charlotte, we need help. Liverpool's midfield, Liverpool's team, we all need help. But I don't know, do we see, before you go on, I know we've been going for nearly 50 minutes, and I think we've kept you more than the added time that they played over in Qatar. So, before you go, how do you see Liverpool's season in the second half?
Well, I always try to be optimistic about them. I don't like to be too negative, and I like to think, I don't know, 7 points behind, 4th place at the moment. Man United, they're in good form. You've got Tottenham, who pick up wins. They're just in better form than Liverpool. Newcastle. The problem is that everyone is just playing better than Liverpool at the moment. So you just feel as though, like, every week I write, Liverpool can't afford to drop any more points, and then they drop points, and then the teams. So you think, well, Newcastle have drawn, like the teams around them dropped points, and then Liverpool went and lost at Brentford. So it's just, I don't think they'll get top 4. I don't think they will, because I think they'll be too far behind. I just think they'll lose too much ground, and then teams in front just won't drop that many points. And then part of me is always like, oh, well, probably win the Champions League because it's Liverpool and need to do something. But how do you come through against Real Madrid over 2 legs when you're playing like this? And is Van Dijk going to be fit for that? I'm not sure.
Touch and go.
I don't think anyone knows. So I don't know. I want to be optimistic, but I don't. Well, I think unless we sign someone decent in midfield, then I don't think it's going to be a very nice season.
I like the way your optimism lasted about 10 seconds. And we're told us we're not going to get top 4. But Charlotte, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I think we've got your Twitter handle pinned up wherever you are. Please find her, give her a follow, and continue all the good work that you're doing. And we hope, fingers crossed, that you're writing a lot of stuff that's good about Liverpool, and in the second half of the season, how Liverpool make a miraculous turnaround. And climb up that table. And maybe, you never know, in seasons, what was it, when Alisson headed over the goal into the front. We got third as well, and that was really unexpected as well. So stranger things have happened. So, and there's a lot of games, and football's a funny game. We could be sat here in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, or even a week's time, and just talking about a different Liverpool. But, you know, it's more hope than reality at the moment. But Charlotte, thank you very much for joining us, and have a good night, and take care of yourself.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. See you later. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Charlotte.
Right.
Oh, Charlotte was supposed to be the optimistic one, Shide, and it lasted about 2 minutes. She told us we're not going to get top 4. How do you see it going?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of football to play, still. And I think I've started targeting Newcastle because if we win our game in hand, I think we'll be closer to them than to any other club at this stage. I still think it's not beyond the realms of possibility for Liverpool to get top 4 because there's a lot of talent on that team, and there's a lot of pedigree and experience as well. The goalkeeper is excellent. Salah, a rich reign of form for him, can carry you as well. But they've already, last time it took a miracle. I mean, that you haven't seen a goalkeeper score a goal like that before or since. So that was a miracle, and it included a very reputable and good win at Old Trafford as well, in the lime green jerseys, if you remember. And there were some big performances to get us to top 4 during the COVID year. But I don't think that's miracles don't strike twice. You're going to have to do this on merit, and you have to do this quickly and with a methodical way, climbing up the table, taking each game at its time. And you're not going to be able to do it with this depleted ragtag squad that you have, in which you get these phantom injuries all the time, in which you don't know who's going to own the club. You don't know who's in charge of the transfer window, and you only get 2 chances of this transfer window a year, and you squandered the last one, and you look like you're squandering this one as well. And then you also don't have the legs. So I'm trying to understand, there's obviously a great chance to make the top 4, but you have to act as well. You can't, it's not going to happen by just expecting the manager to commit miracle after miracle after miracle every time. I mean, he can only work with what he has. And I think it's quite simple. If you don't sign, not one, if you don't sign 2 midfielders, you're not going to make the top 4. If you sign the 2 midfielders, your chances go up. And with regard to Real Madrid, I mean, I saw Modric in Qatar. I saw Tchouaméni in Qatar. I saw Valverde in Qatar. They were fantastic, including Rodrigo. Fantastic. Modric is not even close to slowing down. Kroos rested the whole month. So I'm talking midfield to midfield. They will rip you to shreds, unfortunately. Okay, unfortunately, unless you get some legs in there and you get on the front foot with them. Bellingham, I mean, look, maybe we've gotten some good signals from Borussia Dortmund, because we keep talking about Henderson and Trent, but don't forget, Jurgen also came from Dortmund as well, so he has his connections there too. So maybe somebody has back-channeled him personally as well. So, I mean, obviously, there's no chance he's going to come in. He's not going to jump ship in January and come here. I don't think Jurgen wants a player who does that anyways. So Bellingham will play out the whole season. But there, like I mentioned earlier, there are players who are available who have the energy in their legs, who can help us. And maybe we can pull something off against Real Madrid. And look, unfortunately, the home leg is first, but don't underestimate Liverpool on a European night at Anfield, ever. ever. And we're one good performance from Salah and one good performance from Alisson away from pulling something off at the Bernabeu as well. But parking the bus and going into that 4-2-3-1 that Charlotte mentioned, I mean, that was Rafa with, Alonso and Mascherano. I mean, that's not how Klopp plays. And that's not attractive to watch as well. It worked against Manchester City. It might work against Real Madrid, but the majority of the clubs that you're going to play with, that you want to beat to make the top four, you're going to have to play on the front foot.
Yeah. Well, personally speaking, Shad, I'm not a fan of the 4-2-3-1 anyway, especially, and I know we've done all right against, I think it was Rangers that we started it with, maybe Napoli as well. But over the covers, and it's really interesting to see when we played Rangers or Napoli and we had the away leg, the away game at Arsenal. And I think we went back to the 4-3-3 because I think better teams will take advantage against you in midfield. I can't remember which game we went back to the 4-3-3 against, but I think over the course of the season, yes, if you sort of play it to a T, you can get away with it. But better teams will make sure that number 10, let's say it's Gakpo, let's say it's Bobby Firmino, gets dragged into midfield. And then we've got the same, problem as we're seeing now with Harvey Elliott in the right-sided midfielder role, where we want him to defend, we want him to be, aware of the ball, but he just doesn't have those attributes. So he's not a midfielder or an attacker. And I think we'll have the same problems in a 4-2-3-1 with the number 10.
I feel like we're maybe fixating a little bit too much on the formation itself and formations, and then in general we just have to play better. We have to run more. We have to pass better. We have to take our chances. We have to defend with our wits about it. I mean, the defending against Brentford, our heads were all over the place. There's people standing in our box open for like 5-6 seconds. I mean, that's an eternity in professional football, and even in amateur football. And where are these people? Who's running? Who's making the tackles? Who's sliding? Who's throwing the body on the line? So I think that's one problem. Just we're not playing well. The second problem is we have a Bobby problem, because Bobby is a unique player that, of which you're not going to see again. And not having Bobby playing consistently, you're not going to, he's such a key to us that I feel that Liverpool have to reinvent that element of the tactics for sure, as to who's going to drop back in midfield. Maybe that's why they just dive straight into Gakpo and said, you know what, we're going to do this, because they see him as a future potential Bobby replacement, someone who can link up in the midfield as well. But the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-4-2, we are playing terrible. I have to say that. I love this team to death. I love this manager to death. But Wolves was really, really bad. That had nothing to do with formation. That was just bad football.
100% bad football. Waxy has come and landed into the building. Waxy, you've been listening backstage. Give us your thoughts, man. How are you doing anyway, first of all?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good. Yeah, I've been listening backstage, and I think a couple of interesting points. I think we talked about personnel, we talked about formations, but I think we've got to understand that the players that Klopp probably has now in his squad cannot play the Klopp way that he used to play a few years ago, where it was energetic midfield. They used to press, get back, transitions were good. A couple of the players apart, I think it was just Fabinho that really, Thiago wasn't there, Henderson was there as well, that played that role, but they're getting older, and you can't be playing that system. Well, those players probably couldn't or carry on playing that way of Klopp's way for them number of years. Henderson's lost his legs. He can't press anymore. 3-4 years ago, even the Barcelona game, his pressing was immense, as with Wijnaldum as well. But now you don't see that anymore. Fabinho, there was a picture I saw on Twitter where yesterday's game with Wolves, the midfield were just on the left side, and the whole of the right side of our midfield was empty. And there was about 5 or 6 Wolves players free. whether they're just getting pulled to one side or they haven't got the legs to actually cover the ground, I'm not sure. And that's what comes back to the defense. We're leaking goals because the defense does not have protection in front of them. Fabinho can't do that role anymore. Thiago, apart from his passing or probably some of his transitional play, we don't see that combativeness in midfield as well at the same time. So that's why I personally think we're losing transitions, we leak goals because there's not enough protection that we've got for the defense.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's going to take, as Kadir mentions, it's going to take Liverpool a long time. He was the catalyst to our attack. He sort of connected play on the halfway line. He let Salah and Mane make those diagonal runs. It's going to take time. But I just don't like, Chinese, this word transition, because normally in normal circumstances, I don't mind it. But I just feel this transition, it was self-inflicted. Because as Shahid mentioned and Charlotte mentioned as well, City were a lot better prepared for it. They had the players to make sure they feed their big man. And I have no problem with Nunez missing chances and everything like that. I think his movement's been brilliant over the course of the season, and he will get goals just like he did yesterday. But I feel like if we were going to make this transition, we should have planned for it. And what has made us get into this situation where all of a sudden the only sort of progressive player or a player who likes to play in the half space was Harvey Elliott in that midfield. Everyone else is aging, has got no legs, just like what you guys have said. We've only got one player. So if you're going to make a transition, then you need to make sure you're a lot better prepared for it.
Asim, you mentioned transition. What transition is when you're transitioning 4 or 5 players out of the side, you bring in 4 or 5 players. That is your transition. You're transitioning from them players to these players. You're moving forward. Where is our transition been over the last 4.5 years in terms of our midfield? Who have you brought in for the actual transition? Nobody. So this notion that we're actually going through a transition period, sometimes I find it baffling. And yeah, Atik just mentioned it's the first time he's heard of a transition. I didn't think at the start of the season this was a transition period. Did you? Nobody did. We watched the game against City at the Man City at Leicester. There was no talk of transition. We were talking about going for every single trophy again because we played that well. So I'm sorry, but I can't accept this season as just a transition. A transition, you bring in a few players, you bring in a couple of midfielders, you say, okay, this is our transition. We've brought in a few. There's about 4 or 5 changes made to the side, and it's going to take us a year to get to a certain level. Fine, I do understand that. But this is completely self-inflicted. 4.5 years, one midfielder. Come on, man. You've got players that are sat at 31 years of age. You've brought in 17, 18, 19-year-olds to come into a Klopp side and to kick on. I'm sorry, but I don't accept that. It just doesn't make sense. And I just find it baffling. Look, we've got issues from top to bottom. The ownership is an issue right now. We don't know what's going on with that. So many of our staff, we don't even have a club doctor yet. How many of our players, our staff, backroom staff, people who are in the higher places, gone? The players look lost. The manager, with all due respect, I watched his presser the other day. I felt as though he was lashing out. And this presser thing with Klopp over the last few, mostly this season, it's not the Klopp that we know. And I can accept that, when you're going through a bit of a tough period, you're going to lash out. The media are going to ask you them sort of questions. But he looks like it's got to him a little bit. And I'm going to be honest, it does look like, because some of the excuses that have been portrayed, come on, man. I just don't buy them excuses anymore. And, somebody just sent me a message a bit ago saying that he's unhappy with the ownership because he was promised 2 defenders or something, 2 midfielders of a decent caliber. Rightly so. If he was promised 2 players, then there's a question to be asked. There's 3 weeks. If you really, really want, if this is actually true, then Klopp needs to be backed. And if you're not going to be backed, then he really needs to throw his toys out of the pram at these owners and say, listen, you've not given me the tools to make this club sustain where it takes, to get us to the level that we were at. Asim, look, like I said, I don't want to speak too much right now. I've given them till the 31st of Jan. I want them to go and actually prove that they care about the club and that they're willing to spend to keep us at least give us a fighting chance for top four. Right now, they've given us loanees. That's not giving us a fighting chance.
Shahid, I want to ask you that there's a notion, even amongst Liverpool fans, that Klopp is too stubborn, whether it comes to his team lineup, his team philosophy, his transfer policy, giving out 3-4 year contracts to Henderson and not giving it to Wijnaldum and letting him go. Milner still at the club at the age of 37. How much away? Do you think they have a case?
No, I think basically what we need to understand is two different things. One is when you give people a contract extension, it's not a signing. What has been marketed to us by the ownership is that it is a signing. Oh, look at us. We've given this contract. We've given that contract. We've given that contract. Most of the clubs who, when I grew up, when a player got a contract extension, it wasn't even a press release. It was in-house, move on. Okay, now because of this age of media, we find out when a player gets a press release, through a press release, if you've got a contract extension or not. That is a big issue for me, which is that we haven't, even if we did give the contracts, we haven't turned the team over at all. So if you go through the names, Klein, Lovren, Marino, Emre Can, who's a very good player, Adam Lallana, who Klopp love, on and on and on. Love, I think I already mentioned Lovren. So a lot of players have been moved on. Benteke, Sturridge. Klopp was ruthless. He has the ruthless streak, but he has to see something coming from behind. He has to see some sort of investment being given to him so that he can move forward. Now, you're in so many different competitions. You've got Newcastle coming up with a head of steam. You got Man United continually throwing everything they can to get back in the Champions League. You saw what we've seen what Chelsea are doing. You got City. Arsenal threw £250 million at their team, just chucked it at it. So you're not keeping up. Yeah. You're not keeping up at all with regard to spending. And you think, oh, look at us. We spent like 30-40 million pounds and we're going to keep up. You're barely keeping up with Brighton. Okay? They're spending more than you are. And what's going to end up happening to you is that you're going to fall into that secondary category from 5th to 8th. And that because invariably how much you spend is what comes out the other end. And you've had a manager who's been punching above his weight miraculously for 3 or 4 years. And eventually he needs some sort of assistance and some sort of help to move the club into this next stage. We don't want to call it a transition, fair enough, but the investment hasn't been forthcoming. I don't think that it's a case of being stubborn. I think we don't know what's going on behind the scenes at all. I don't want to make a big deal out of it like a lot of people on Twitter did, but the fact that he has a Yankees hat on is a little bit weird to me. It is. And I'll say another thing, one last thing. This FSG model worked really well for this club. And we've had some of the best times of our lives in the last 5 to 6 years, all of us, memories that will last us a lifetime. However, I feel like I'm a Red Sox fan now, looking at them offering 331 million pounds, I think it was to Devers. And now we are sitting here thinking that's our money or that we should get a portion of it. And they've added on the Pittsburgh Penguins as well. So now it's just a big, incestuous pool of money. And we don't know how much money our owners have, what's available for us, what's not available for us. And it's always, we're going to sell to buy, we're going to earn to spend. That's not really the football model. Nobody's really functioning like that. Even West Ham are not functioning like that. Okay, they signed Scamacca, they signed Paqueta. They're in the market for other players. We have to keep up with the rest of the league. Now, they want whether they think that they're going to get a big influx of cash from an investor. When they got the Redbird money, they didn't spend any money. When the TV contracts were renewed, they didn't spend any money. When they got the Nike deal, they didn't spend any money. I'm sorry if you and the Champions League finalists 3 times. 3 times in the last 5 years, you're not spending that. Okay, you won 2 cups last year. You're selling out continuously. You're actually the #1 club on television over the last couple of years because of you're so popular and you're so successful. You're getting like a couple of £1 million every time you're on television as well. I counted 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I counted 250 million pounds that should have been spent on contracts 2 years ago. That's what I counted. And that in the next 2 years, I don't know how much more that if you were just pumping in a normal 50, 60 million net spend every season. Now, there's another way to look at it. Just look at the net spend, okay? And then come back to me and tell me how this club is supposed to keep up. Number one. Number two, salaries, okay? You have one player who's earning about more than 275,000 pounds. That's Mo Salah. Everybody else is below that water level. Now, Verge is making a lot, but you've got clubs who have like 8, 9 players in that category. The one you're going up against, City, pretty much everybody's earning more than 200,000 pounds on their club. How can you compete in the market for the players when you're not offering the same amount and you keep looking for like cheaper alternatives? And Nunez is a cheaper alternative. I'm sorry. He's a great player, but you got rid of a 31-year-old and you replaced him with a 21-year-old. That's fiscally responsible. That's good planning for the future. But you also got rid of a player who wanted 250,000 pounds a week or 250,000 euros a week, and one who's going to take 110. Same for Diaz. Okay, and we'll see when these contracts are up for renewal in 4 years. If you still have these same owners, whether at that time they'll be willing to play market rate. So it's always about looking for value, looking for value, looking for value. But no one else is behaving like that. People like, oh, Newcastle are very intelligent. Newcastle played their cards really smart. Have you seen the amount of players they signed? Pope, Wilson, Guimaraes, of their entire defensive line. You're right back to Trippier. I mean, I've just counted like 150 pounds, 120, 130 million pounds of players. Who'd they sell? They didn't sell Almiron. They didn't sell Joe Linton. They haven't sold any. They didn't sell John Joe Shelby. They haven't sold any assets. So obviously, that's all net spend that they're putting in. They're doing it intelligently, but they're still spending money, and you're not.
But Shahid, just to sort of play devil's advocate, do you think Newcastle are at a different stage of their investment? Let's be honest, they're state funded, they've just come in. Yes, they've been very, very clever, as in they're not going to the clubs and sort of bidding, crazy amounts. They've sort of kept it honest. And if they're asking for too much, they walked away from a few deals and then come back to it. And then before all of a sudden, nobody knows, all of a sudden they've signed someone like, Isaac. They did that very, very, quietly.
Good point. 60 million pounds. Awesome. The only stage they're going to be at is in the Champions League stage. And the only stage you're going to be at is in the Conference League stage. I'm sorry.
100%.
Those are the stages that work.
100%. And I was coming to the one of the comments that's saying, look, we're at a stage now. And I think FSG have accepted that it's either a strategic partner that comes in and gives them a lump of cash to sort of sit beside them and invest in this squad, or
what is the
it's
point?
a change of ownership.
When we're sat in bloody 8th, they should have given us this money at the start of the season. Then they could have done something. What is the point of giving us the money when we're signed 8th position, when we miss out on top 4? The money should have been there when we were at the top of the league, not flipping signed 8th.
But Gene, nobody saw us sat in 8th. I don't care. Everybody saw the drop. No problem. But from last season, nobody saw the drop. I've been calling out for a midfielder for years since Genie left. But nobody can truthfully say that we saw ourselves.
I can accept that. That's a fair point. Yep, I can accept
now the situation is so real that we have to act. But Waxy, if we had a cameo yesterday at Anfield, what type of midfielder that we need is we were provided that by Nunez, who came on. The way he received the ball, his awareness, his decision making, the way he receives the ball and progresses the ball. That is one thing that we have. And under pressure, he was brilliant. And I just want to, sort of get your thoughts, what you thought of his 30-minute cameo.
Yeah, I think Nunez is the midfielder that we need, similar to Gini Wijnaldum, in terms of he's quite combative in that way. I think he'll sign for Liverpool in the summer. I think he's coming. The Telegraph have reported it, and they're quite reliable in that way. It's not. I don't think it's a source that we would not look into. So I think Nunez will probably come. I understand why it's a little bit more than what we could have paid last summer, but what I want to push on the Klopp point, you can see the body language of Klopp in the last few months. When FSG announced that they were going to sell the club or looking for investment, the Klopp's face was like beaming with a smile. He knew that he's going to get some money coming in. And, everyone, honestly, before that announcement came out, you could see Klopp's body language. He was snapping a little bit. Since that announcement, he was happy. You could see the smile on his face. He even sort of said there will be investment into the squad. Now, his last press conference, he was snapping again. And I feel as though there is something going behind the scenes that Klopp is not happy with, or something's not being followed up upon, whether the sale was supposed to go through sooner rather than later and something's happening and it's not gone through. But why is it always that Liverpool have to be reactive? Why can't we be proactive and to understand, we've got players moving on. They're not going to play forever. They're going to retire. They need to sign for another club for a payday retirement fund. We expect that to happen, but why have we not planned that? That's so weird. And now it has to be from the fans that will, cause an uproar, the press, the journalists coming out and pressing Klopp for it, where we need to see a reaction. Same in the summer with Arthur Melo signing, because Henderson got injured in the last couple of days before the transfer window, and Klopp decided that he got it wrong. Well, he said he got it wrong. And then we signed Arthur Melo on loan, which was one of the worst moves that Klopp has made in terms of transfers. So there is something going on backstage where I feel as though there is a bit of I won't call it a turmoil, but with all the resignations that are happening, whether there's a takeover is imminent or it's actually gone cold.
Interesting stuff. I think we'll hear plenty over the course of the next 20 days, plenty more links to midfielders. And another, I think, area that we need to look at is the defence in the summer, because with Van Dijk's injury, he's going over sort of the wrong side of 30. Matip is injury record. So that leaves Gomez, who's had, some crazy injuries over the last, 4 or 5 years. And that leaves Kanate, the only really reliable. And he's had his own, problems as well, picking up silly knocks. But I think that's a conversation for another day. But before we wrap up, as promised, we've got the competition winner. I told these guys backstage, we didn't really have a proper way, official way. I think we should have been a bit more organized, but I think that was my bad. So we'll go on the Twitter page. As you guys know, the requirement was you must retweet our competition and then be in the comments tonight. So what I will do is I'll turn my phone just this way. I can't see the people who retweeted, so I will pick my best mate. I'm just going to go on the retweets. As you can see, I just show the camera. Can you guys see that?
There's a lot of light. Turn it down a little bit for your phone light.
My phone light, just bear with me. Can you see that now?
That's better, yeah.
Yeah, so that's Born and Red's page, yeah. Just for the benefit of the camera, just in case someone accuses me of setting this up. Right, those are retweets at 3 winners. So I'm just going to scroll down. That's the first one, yeah, this one. So Mahbub at MK98. I'll just quickly write this down. Mahbub MK. That's the first one. That one. Tank at Tank LFC. I hope you guys didn't retweet this. There we are. That's the third one. And that is Shaq2305. Shaq2305. If you guys are in the chat, if you just don't mind messaging us on Twitter, and then we'll sort or we'll send you some pictures.
The 3 names I think just put a thing out that on Twitter, then you'll know who they are, and then they'll know they might not be in the chat. So just we'll put a message out on Twitter so they know who the winners are.
Yeah, good idea. So we'll get in touch with them, and then we can sort out if what they are. So small, medium, large. Might be an extra large like Waxy as well. But he's fed up with his Sunday evening. He's talked enough. He's had enough. Hopefully, we are talking about a Brighton away win, Shide. Well, how do you see that going? Because it's going to be difficult, really difficult.
That's going to be a very tough match. They look like lightning right now. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult game. Now, it depends. Usually, we used to go by the theory that if Jurgen Klopp had 5 days to prepare the team, 4 days to prepare the team, there was no chance for the other team. The only chance you can get against Liverpool is you catch them on a Wednesday, Saturday, or a Sunday, Tuesday, or Saturday, Tuesday rotation. And if you had the rest on the Wednesday or the Tuesday, and we had to play the third game in a week, you had a chance. You had a chance against us. But with both teams getting a full week's rest, it just depends now as to how we start, when we score the first goal, what type of errors we are going to commit, what we're not going to commit. Not having Virgil is a big loss, actually, in matches like this. I can't say anything that's going to happen in this week that will determine the result. Nothing. You're not going to be able to sign a new player in who's going to come in unless you do something radical and you start Bekçelik. You're going to go with the same kind of midfield. So then it comes back. This is an open gap match. I mean, I would definitely not be putting any money on Liverpool at this stage if the bookies open them up at 60p. No chance. It's even money. It's even money game. It's all about who executes better, who doesn't execute better. They're at home. They'll be up for it. But you have so much talent on the attacking side of things. You can look at the way we also took care of Villa now. Boom, boom, boom. Boxing Day, they were up for it. They had rested. They're not a bad team. They had a new manager in, etc., etc., etc. But we took care of them, so we can do it. But frankly speaking, I'm not optimistic about that match, and that is why the Brentford match was quite important. It would have given us great momentum, and momentum is very important, and it would have given us great confidence, actually. And then we could have overcome these next two matches, Brighton and Chelsea. And if you knocked out Brentford, Chelsea, you're on your way. You're actually on your way. But as I see it now, the Brentford defeat, and then we got Brighton and Chelsea, this is going to become a very sketchy period for us. And they could be long gone by the time you're out of this period. The Garnacho goal against Fulham, the last goal in the last minute, that could be the turning point of the season, because they were in big trouble at that stage. And had that match been a draw, they would have been in this mire with us. And then all four of us, Chelsea, Spurs, Liverpool, United, would have been in the same boat, attacking the two spots, the Newcastle spot and the empty spot. But right now, it seems like it's Arsenal are not coming back. Okay. City aren't coming back, obviously. And then you got United. There's distance between us and United. And Newcastle is the only one that we can hang on to. And Spurs are closer to them than we are. It's pretty bad. The tables are not looking good. A lot of matches to play, but we have to be very careful. We got to start playing these matches like they're finals. If you're going to get injured in training, you might as well put your body on the line. Start throwing yourself in front of shots, for God's sake. Start taking some yellows. I tweeted a video of what Villarreal were doing to Vinicius. They were basically sending him back to Brazil with every tackle. Okay. Take some yellows, put some players into the stands, make some tactical fouls, waste some time, get some results. It's desperate moment. We're desperate now. No more like gentlemanly football. We have to really, really scratch and claw.
Just had a comment from Trust. Just saw this in my feed. Is it a channel speak it as it is without sugarcoating, or they are top reds like Redmen? Look, we know Redmen, they're friends of ours, and these guys get that sort of labeled many, many times. I don't know what it means, top reds, bottom reds. I don't know what it is, but whenever I've talked to them, and I'm sure these guys who have been listening to us today, we might not be effing and blinding, because we're not those sort of people. But what we do is we try to break it down and sort of talk about it with a level head. Some people might like to F them blind. We're not saying they're wrong or right or wrong. That's just their style. And yes, we have to praise our players, but when they need to be criticised, we do criticise our own players. Like I said, we don't need to F them blind to sort of express our point, if you like. And today is an example of that. I think we've talked about FSG. We've talked about some sort of sensitive issues around the club, how much we spend, the midfield issue, the FSG, we think not backing Klopp when it's the real time of need for this club. So I'm sure if he watches the show back, and I'm sure he'll agree with us anyway, but if he doesn't, then maybe he'll catch us next time. But yeah, I think it's Waxy called it turmoil at the club, crisis, even confusion amongst the team, amongst the fans, and even the management. But I don't know, maybe this hour and a half provided our viewers and ourselves a bit of therapy, because especially when you're losing and you're down week in, week out, when it seems like anyway at the moment with Liverpool, it's good to talk. It's good to talk, and I'm sure I feel a bit better. I don't know why. Maybe Chinese face.
I don't think I'll feel any better until we win a game. So that's just the way it goes.
I feel worse.
I've let it out. It makes me feel better. But I don't know. Maybe a win, like you said, gets us in a better mood. But that's all we have time for tonight, guys. Thank you very much. Please smash a like and let us know what your thoughts are in the comment section. We like to sort of reply even after the show to people, even when our viewers come back at a later date to view the show. But yeah, hopefully Liverpool climb up that table, and we shall see you on Sunday. Waxy's put up another comment before we leave. Rough patch for us, but full faith in the team and the manager that will back to our ways. I think that is the perfect way to finish the show on. On that note, that these things happen. We all celebrate together when everything's rosy, but when things are tough, we have to sort of get together, because united, we are together better when I can't even get my words out. We're better when we're united. But on that note, thank you very much. Great stuff, lads, and we shall catch you on the next one. Take care. See you later.